it's Mike Tomano here with Dweezil Zappa.
Hey,
what a pleasure.
Thanks.
The Zappa legacy lives on, now with Zappa Plays Zappa. Tonight is Roxy Elsewhere. That's the tour, right?
Yeah, we're playing the entire album from top to bottom, but we also play usually about 90 minutes more of some other music besides the over an hour of Roxy music.
Yeah, and I'm sure no one has a problem with that.
Usually not.
Everybody needs to listen to Frank Zappa. He's the best.
I've been listening to Zappa since 1969. I don't know. Means
Isn't it awesome that Dweezil continues the music?
Oh yeah, I can't wait to hear him play Roxy and Elsewhere. Mm-hmm.
When you look at the significance of Roxy and Elsewhere, one of the things I noticed with Frank is, unlike most bands, he would debut entire new music live.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I've been actually mentioning that to people to put it into perspective, because I ask if there's anyone who hasn't heard the record before, and the few that say that they haven't, I said, well, you get to hear it the way other people heard it 40 years ago, before it was an album, and it was just a concert. So that's the part that's so cool about trying to give people the opportunity to hear the music for the first time. Because when you hear it for the first time, it's new music. It doesn't matter if it was done 40 years ago.
Right.
But I always tell people it's very contemporary, so contemporary, in fact, that it is from the future.
Right. Oh, amen. Yeah.
I've been listening to Frank Zappa's music since I was a kid.
What do you think about Dweezil's Zappa Plays Zappa, bringing it to the next generation?
I think it's a good idea.
I've seen him 3 times at the Uptown, and they were all excellent shows.
I've seen Frank at least 15 times, never seen Dweezil. So this will be a first tonight.
You're in for a great show.
I'm ready for it.
All right, man. Thanks.
I just think he's one of the greatest electric guitarists of all time. And his music might be out there, and a lot of it I certainly don't get, but I don't think you're necessarily supposed to. I just think it's awesome.
The torture never stops.
Through the 80s, and you had developed a certain style as a guitar player. So now you had to go back and learn your dad's music perfectly. And so now, what kind of stylistic differences as a guitar player did you see from Frank's playing to the playing that you had developed by that age?
Well, the biggest challenge was that I had to go from being an alternate picking guitar player to using all kinds of different pickings.
Yeah.
So there's things called economy picking or sweep picking, which the guitar pick ends up using going across multiple strings, and it's like a directional kind of picking, so that you reform how you finger things in order to get the pick to work a different way. But even that, I had to use extra fingers to do hybrid picking, because a lot of the melodies that I wanted to learn were not written to be played on guitar, and so there's all these intervallic leaps. That took years of redeveloping and reprogramming how to play, and ultimately what it did was it drastically changed what I was capable of, because it was kind of like taking everything you knew for 25 years and then saying, well, forget that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it this way now.
Frank Zappa's music has been with me forever. The epiphany I had was hearing from across the street, these hippies were playing Just Another Band from LA. And this is the 70s. I was like, these guys are cool, right? Because I got the biggest record collection. But I had never heard anything like that. And so that was the epiphany. You must hear all kinds of stories about when people first heard Frank Zappa's music and the change that it made in their life.
Yeah, I do. And I mean, the thing about it is that Frank's music just shows that there are really no boundaries required in music. That's something that's put on marketing to people, you know, so that people can say, oh, if you are this person, you will like this music.
Yeah.
But Frank just made music for the sake of music. It hasn't achieved the kind of exposure that other kinds of music has.
Yeah.
But when people do discover it, they sort of almost forget about everything else and exclusively stick with Frank's music.
Yeah.
It becomes an obsession for a lot of people.
She goes, wow. Chester's Gorilla.
Don't eat the yellow snow.
Autographed by Dweezil. Ray White.
Dweezil, Ray White.
We got signatures, man.
One of the things about Frank Zappa and his music is it's a leaping off point too. I mean, how many people discovered Varese and Stockhausen and Stravinsky because of Frank's music? So you're bringing that to the next generation.
Well, we try. You know, one of the biggest things that we do in the show is just give a balanced perspective of Frank's music, because he made over 80 albums.
Yeah.
You know, to see people playing this stuff does make a difference as opposed to just hearing it, because people are known to what goes on in music. They think stuff's all done with computers.
Yeah, right,
You know, at this point, a kid hearing this, if he didn't see somebody play it, would think that somebody just programmed it on a computer.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, walk us through the rehearsal process, because it's not easy finding musicians of this caliber. And let's talk about the current lineup and kind of how you guys got this tour together.
Yeah, the current lineup is the smallest band that we've had. We call it the Rocking Teenage Combo.
Okay.
And Frank had different size bands all the time, you know, even down to a 4-piece. But this is a 6-piece lineup, and it has Sheila Gonzalez, who is one of the original members of the core band. But over the years, you know, we've had some different people come in and out, and this is the youngest band by far, which is ultimately what I set out to do, was find the youngest players, so that it would be more of a visually appropriate message to say, hey, this is music for any generation.
Yeah, right.
Because a lot of people get hung up on the fact that they say, oh, well, you know, this is all music for old people. It's like, but, you know, this stuff is amazing music. It needs to be played. And if you can inspire a younger generation to play it, you know, then that's a really important thing. So the other people in the band, we have Ben Thomas, who sings. He's also playing trumpet and trombone.
Okay.
We have Ryan Brown on the drums. We have Kurt Morgan on the bass. We have Chris Norton on keyboards, but he's doing all the percussion stuff, all the marimba things on keyboards. So he's got his 2 hands on different keyboards all the time, like doing this kind of stuff. So it's crazy parts that he has to learn to do. Then I'm playing guitar and doing some vocals and stuff too.
Excellent. So tell us about the What the Hell Was I Thinking project. Where's that at?
That thing is a crazy project. It's best described as an audio movie.
Okay.
And it's got a lot of different scenes, and then you have guest stars in the scenes. So different guitar players sort of start falling out of the speakers, you know. Anyone from Eddie Van Halen to Eric Johnson to Brian May from Queen, Angus and Malcolm Young from AC/DC, Steve Vai, Steve Morris, Brian Setzer, Joe Walsh, all different people that are just making these guest appearances on music that's constantly morphing and changing. But I started it almost 20 years ago, and I started it on analog tape, but I had some issues with the tape machine because they were on the larger reels, and by the time you would get towards the end of the reel, there was something happening with the motor of the machine, so it was slightly increasing the speed, which meant that anything that you tried to overdub at that point would never stay in tune, because the speed was changing gradually, not to where you could hear it just to a big jump, but a gradual thing. So for a while I had some difficulties completing some sections, and then it moved to a different format, a different digital format, and then finally got onto a computer system, because technology has changed in the last 20 years.
So, in the last 20 minutes.
So we, I finally have that stuff available to me to continue working on it, but in the process I've learned so many other things about production and guitar playing, so it's still going to evolve into something even more dramatic than what it is. But that being said, there's also a piece of music that's about to come out that's called Dinosaur, which is kind of like a mini version of What the Hell Was I Thinking?
Okay.
It has 7 different guitar solos on it, and the